A reading from the Gospel of Luke. Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' And he answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. And he said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'And how much do you owe?' And he replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light.'" Well, this is one of those parables, these stories that Jesus tells, that leaves us often feeling a bit uncomfortable because Jesus seems to be commending dishonesty and self-serving behavior and saying that as long as the outcome is good, then the means don't matter. And it's hard for us when we're trying to construct lives of moral integrity and authenticity to ourselves and to God and to the gospel to know what to make of a story like this, because often we'll think of religion as a set of guidelines, behavioral guidelines, moral principles to which we might aspire. Jesus is always saying the bar is set here, but I say to you the bar is even higher. Don't not only don't murder, but don't even speak in anger to someone, because that's on the same spectrum with murder. So we're accustomed to being encouraged, if we will, to greater heights of moral clarity and ethical action. And here comes this parable out of left field, where Jesus is telling us a story about a man who clearly was cheating his master, got caught. The master is getting ready to fire him. He recognizes it. And then he kind of furthers his crime by, going against the master's interest yet again and cutting into what is owed to him in order to purchase, literally to buy favor with the people around him to whom he is now looking for support, now that he knows he's losing his job. And rather than bringing further wrath and condemnation, it brings this affirmation. You are basically, finally, you're acting like a smart manager for me. So what are we to do with this? What is Jesus trying to tell us? I don't think he's trying to tell us to go out and lie and cheat our employers and then turn around and try and bribe other people with our employers' money to kind of get ourselves a little bit of curry some favor on our way out the door. I don't think we're being given this as a morality tale or an example of how we are to act, except this. Jesus tells the story, and at the very end of it, if we can get past everything that's offending us about the story, we get to where he says, "For the master says that the children of this generation," speaking of obviously God, that sometimes the people of the world act in a more effective, canny, and results-oriented way than do the children of light. And Jesus is trying to tell us that there is something about the outcome and the means that are in a slightly different relationship than we might imagine on its face. Jesus is inviting us, challenging us to think creatively about what the outcomes are that God would want to have happen, what we can infer from all we've been taught, what we can gather from our communal discernment about where it is that we feel God is calling us, that it's up to us to use not just our moral fortitude and our desire to follow Christ and our desire to follow a set of precepts that help us to live more deeply into our Christian life, but But he says, I really want you to use the brain that God gave you. I really want you to use your mind to think strategically about what God's goals might be. There's also something in this story about the ultimate power. This manager is caught up, and this manager and his employer are caught up in a kind of interesting power struggle or a dynamic. And this manager realized that ultimately his safety, his well-being lies in the community that he's been perhaps exploiting a little bit on behalf of the owner of the business. He recognizes and he uses what he can to try and reestablish his relationship or deepen his relationship with the members of the community so that they can help him continue to survive. It's not exactly a tidy story, is it? But to me, the two things I take from this morning are this. God gave us brains. We're to act creatively with them, and we are not to be caught up in being so rule-bound, hide-bound, and moralistic that we kind of miss the forest for the trees. And there's something in this story about where our ultimate safety lies. We live in a society where we can think our safety lies any number of places. It can lie in our security systems for our homes and buildings. It can lie in having enough money stacked up so that we feel safe. There are all sorts of ways that we can try and insulate ourselves from life, from risk, from hardship. But where our safety ultimately lies is by our membership in the body of Christ, our membership, our relationships with others who are also following the way of Jesus, because there is nothing we cannot accomplish as a community. And we all know that when the chips are down and our members of our community around us are in need, that we will come to the aid of those who seek us. No matter really what the past behavior has been, we are the kind of community that looks for those who are in need and in need of help, in need of a helping hand for a moment, to bring them to safety, to surround them in God's love, and to help them live into whatever it is that God's calling them to be in their highest calling. So as you wrestle with this peculiar story that's meant, I believe, to make us think, I hope that it brings you a sense of the complexity of our call to follow Christ. And I hope that it helps you to find ways to think differently about how it is you are spending your life, spending your talents, your gifts, and making sure that you're using all of the gifts that God gave you, including that crafty mind that all of us have in some degree. May God be with you this day. May God bless you and keep you this day and always. Amen.